been actually a little reluctant to do this presentation because it's very helpful, but I think it also gives up what has become a competitive advantage for us. Being able to interact with analytics so that you're not diving into Google Analytics and building funnels, building reports, the stuff that we've always done. And we're pretty sophisticated. We've got worksheets that reach out to the API and pull information in and create our scorecards and our dashboards and update our testing spreadsheets. But this has really been a game changer. It's increased the quality of our analysis, and it's all done in your native tongue, English in our case. But I'm going to take you through this, give you some prompts that we use that will get you started on this, and then turn you loose to begin having conversations with your online business. My name is Brian Massey. I'm the founder of Conversion Sciences. We started back in 2007. This and other interviews are part of the Intended Consequences podcast, both on YouTube and where you find your favorite podcasts. I am the author of a foundational book on conversion optimization back to 2012, and I am a webcode fashion model. So to illustrate where I'm coming from on this, we had a client that we were working with. We had just started working with them, and they were anticipating an increase in their conversion rates, which meant that there was an increase in their transactions. And they, being an e-commerce business, were worried about planning for inventory. This is a good problem to have, but if you're trying to run a tight ship on inventory or you have the right products in stock, it can be a little bit unnerving. A good portion of the products they sold came from overseas, and that had extra lead time. Now, this is something that I normally wouldn't be able to help with. I've been doing this a long time, but on the inventory planning side of things, I don't have the experience. But as it turns out, we had connected their analytics to AI. And you know who is good at inventory planning? The language models. They've been trained on all of the human knowledge in this area. I ran a little report for them, and I was overwhelmed by the way it made me look like a genius. It gave us good, better, best, or I should say a pessimistic, average, and optimistic range. It went in and looked at the products that were the highest selling products, knowing that those would probably continue to be the highest selling and would be most impacted. So not all products across the board needed to be increased by 10% or whatever we were anticipating, increasing the conversion rates, increasing the transactions. The bigger selling products would grow faster than that. It did call out those products that had long lead times because they were coming from overseas and put together a little schedule for when they should be ordering these things. The report really did answer a lot of the questions about how you could plan out and stage an increase in inventory while maintaining that tight ship so that you don't have a whole bunch of stuff sitting in inventory and heaven forbid you overbuy some things that you have to clear out with some sort of a clearance sale. This little presentation that I'm doing is going to show you how we connected up the language models to Google Analytics, and it will start allowing you to ask questions just like I did. I want to talk a little bit about why this is really powerful for those of you that are focused on increasing your conversion rates. AI has enabled a whole raft of tools to come onto the market. I get pitched at least 10 of these a month in email, and they are different flavors of, give us your website, tell us what you're trying to accomplish, set up your goals and analytics, and then we'll hand this over to our AI. They will look at your site and say, here are some things that you should do. Most of those are what we call best practices or heuristics. I've tried a number of these. We haven't adopted them because a lot of the suggestions that are being offered are things that we wouldn't test. They're things that we would just recommend changing. They're good enough best practices that we can make the change without doing the test. We're looking for step function, strategic ideas that can really move the needle. And those strategic ideas do have smaller tests where we are testing messaging, where we are testing layout, we're testing the UX, we're adding and removing pages. about this approach of connecting AI to your analytics is that it starts with the data. So this is the way we work. We dive in first and we look at the analytics, and we manually have done this through our scorecards and through building reports, understanding what traffic channels are working, which ones are converting well, which ones are not. And then going in and diagnosing both of those, because there's two areas where you can anticipate increasing your conversion rates is on those things that are working well and on those things that are not working well at all. So we would go in and do this data analysis. This would tell us the parts of the site to go pay attention to. And then we would go look at those pages, bring in some data such as watching session recordings or heat map reports so we can see how people are interacting with these problem parts of the site, and going from there to build out our hypotheses and go through our process of A/B testing. So the beauty of attaching the language model to your data is it lets you start at that level. If you just ask an AI to look at your site and give you some suggestions, it's liable to make recommendations on pages that are doing well. Without testing those things, you could actually be reducing those conversion rates. So a page that's performing well, or a part of the site that's performing well, you want to be very careful about what you're changing. Yes, there are opportunities to improve things, but there are a lot more opportunities to hurt things. And all of the ideas that these language models give us are good ideas. They're good sounding ideas. Just some of them are not going to work for your audience. I've put together a prompt kit on our website. Here's the QR code if you want to pull up your phone or screenshot this for later. I'm going to be offering you 3 prompts that will get you started with talking to analytics. And so you'll be able to get those afterwards. I'm not going to show you all of the prompt language in this because it's just boring. So first of all, how do we connect a language model to our analytics? There's 2 primary ways I'm going to talk about. Number one is using context model protocol. If any of you have been working with Claude Cowork or building out gems or working with Claude Codex, you will have been exposed to this because we can instrument almost anything with these MCPs. It's you talking to your language model. The MCP server is the API for the AIs. And so once they connect to the MCP server, they gain all the capabilities of whatever product. And we've connected ours to our CRM. We've connected it to our accounting software. Of course, all of our internal accounts, processing calendars, for processing Gmail. All of this is being done through these MCP servers. They're very easy to connect. We've been using Claude mostly these days, and Claude Cowork and Claude Code to make it very easy for you to set these up. The disadvantage is that for Google Analytics, Google has provided a way for us to implement this, but it's a bit complex. It goes through cloud, and you connect cloud to your analytics. Once you get through it, you're able to have these easy conversations. Other things we like to do is get support for Tag Manager, because one of the first things that when you run these initial prompts is going to be that it's going to say, oh, I found some things that don't make sense in your analytics, and it's probably an analytics instrumentation problem. Google Tag Manager is the way that you fix those things. Then there are other things that, depending on what sort of agent or infrastructure you're using, memory, being able to schedule regular updates, those things you have to add in. So there are 2 options for setting up this Google MCP server. There's Google's instructions, and probably the best thing for you to do, follow the link. I will put these on the prompt page, which you can get to with the URL. Grab the article that Google has online, drop it into an AI and say, walk me through this. I went through this process and it took quite a while. Another way is Measure U, which has been working on this, has some resources for setting this up, including a workshop that they offer. But they offer these 2 guides, which I think you should go and check out, one for the Mac and one for Windows, in terms of setting up and that MCP server on your system. I'm going to spend most of my time using a tool that, as I said, I think this is a competitive advantage. It's called Everopt. This is one of the new tools that have come on the market. And as I said, it has allowed me and the conversion scientists to really just upscale our capabilities. It uses the API rather than an MCP server. So it is talking directly to the Google APIs. We like this because it means fewer hallucinations. What it means is that the language model generating JSON and SQL to process the data. This is what we call determined. A lot of the language models will fill in the gaps if they will read a table and do an analysis using the neural networks. That's where the hallucinations can bubble up. The tool does offer memory. There is a weekly or daily brief feature, a little agent that is there to start up once a day or once a week and let you know what's going on. And they do support Tag Manager, as well as a couple other things. They have a post-hog implementation and convert.com, which is an A/B testing tool that we've standardized on. There is a link here, and I will also be placing that on the prompt kit page. So let's talk about our first prompt. The first time you do this, why not go in and just get an overview of your business? This is that process where we can find out what the current state of the business is. If you're running an e-commerce site, you may already have a lot of this information coming from Shopify, but it's going to find issues in your analytics. And analytics has the ability to be the central location. Campaigns that are coming from AdWords, sales that are coming in from your e-commerce site, or if you're using if you're doing lead generation, those lead conversions are coming in. Analytics is that central location that unites all of this data because it's all coming in through the website. The prompt is a fairly long one. It's, as I said, it's on the accident prompt page, but it really is just saying, I want you to act as a CRO, a business intelligence leader. Your job is to deliver a complete plain language health report. Don't change anything. This tool does have the ability to change things in Tag Manager, and it gives it some guidelines about how to present things. Since this is a generic prompt, it first is going to deduce what it knows about your business, and you'll be very surprised at what it can figure out just from looking at your analytics. I'll talk a little bit about going in and answering some of these questions by telling it what's going on about your business. So it's looking at a trend in this case and giving us an idea of what's going on over that 12 months and then recently how things are trending. And you can go in and see what's going on to see if there are any hallucinations going on with this. As I said, working with Everopt is going to reduce the hallucinations. But one of the things is that as it's processing, you're going to get a number of these prompts. You're going to be able to see exactly what sorts of things are being processed. So it doesn't open them, but if you click on them, it will open them up. So each of these is a query that is being sent. And when you open it up, it's going to show you something like this. If you don't read JSON, then mean much to you. Fortunately, you can click on this Sheets button and it'll take the output and it'll open in a Google Sheet. That will allow you to go in and examine the table and see what the numbers are. Make sure that they match what you're seeing in your reports. So you get a helpful report from this prompt. It's a business health audit, and it will go through and tell you, as I said, a number of things. It's going to look at the channels that are coming in, which ones are performing well. If it finds channels with a problem, it will drill down onto the issues, even going down to specific products or specific campaigns that might be causing problems. It is a very rich report that you've well worth the read. Or take it and drop it into your favorite LLM where you're having your ongoing business conversations. Drop it in there and then let your day-to-day language model have the information and begin working that into your strategies. I'm going to drag one over so you can see the sort of information that you can get from it. It's going to talk about performance by device. It's going to talk about performance by geography, give you a summary that you can follow. This is some dummy data that we've developed. And it will even give you a prioritized action plan. So ICE score, that's the way that we score hypotheses. It means impact, evidence, and expected conversion rate. We don't use ICE actually, but this is one of the most common ones. And so that's the one that the AI is familiar with. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much time going in on this. I think that once you run that prompt, you are going to be sufficiently wowed, as I was, by how much it can know about your business. One of the other things that we want to do is understand what the sellable traffic is on the site. So any website is getting bots and things like that. We want to eliminate that. So bots On a lot of sites, blogs are used as an SEO tool. So they're informational, but they're not necessarily bringing people who are looking for that product. So a lot of times we can remove the blog traffic and look only at that traffic that's making its way to the marketing site. Even people coming from the blog will be captured in that because some of them might be qualified. It really depends on the business. Sometimes there's a large percentage of people coming to the blog that are qualified. A lot of the times they're just interested in the article, and those articles are supporting the internal pages for other people to find. People who are logging into your SaaS, those are existing customers, so trying to sell them. Internal visitors, people like job seekers, investors, if you have a page on your site, things like that. So this prompt is the sellable traffic prompt. Again, it's available on that prompt page, and it's to define and quantify sellable traffic. Explains a little bit to the language model why that's important. Again, because this is a generic prompt, it's going to go in and understand what sort of a business it is. You can go in and replace this with an explanation of your business so that it knows exactly what's going on. And it's going to do things like go through and find these anomalous segments. So here's a monitoring bot that was coming to the website at the top. AI scrapers, we're seeing a lot of this that are coming from what it calls data center cities. So these are cities where the primary AI data centers are, or Amazon Web Services, which drives a lot of scrapers. In this case, there was some traffic coming from South Korea that was actually filling out forms. There's the internal section. And in this case, it decided that this business's blog was actually contributing. So it didn't eliminate the blog traffic in it. This is very helpful. And if you want to get an instant increase in your conversion rate, this is a great way to do it. Eliminate those visits that aren't valid, and your conversion rate should go up. Here it went from 3.2% up to almost 3.6%. So congratulations, you just increased the conversion rate of your website. And this is where memory will come into play. So once you've discovered this, you want to ask your AI to remember this, and on all future analyses, take out this segment of the traffic. In the report, which you see a segment here, you can see that it's just determining which things to exclude based on what it recommended. In this case, it's doing it for GA4, and it threw in post-hog. Post-hog. I simply type the prompt, remember to apply your recommended exclusions to future analysis for this GA account. In Evernote, it saves it to a memory capability so that if you're analyzing this sellable traffic. The third thing is the weekly brief. So it's one of the things that is part of our client cycle, but not every digital marketer gets prompted to go and weekly check on analytics to see what's going on. But it can be very helpful and help you find issues with anything from your ad campaigns to your emails. We had one brief come through in which there was a spike in their SMS conversions. SMS was working better, and we want to understand what changes made that work better so we can keep doing what that is. I want to talk about this technique. So the way that I generated these is I actually asked the language model to create these prompts for me. And I think this is a superpower that if you're not using this, you should. So I wanted to share with you the prompt that I used to generate this weekly brief. I said, I want it to be generic for lead generation as well as e-commerce and SaaS companies. It's going to run weekly. I run this every 7 days. I want it to compare 90-day trends to the last 7 days. Choose what to expect as an experienced performance-focused digital marketer. But I did highlight, make sure you address traffic channels, changes in conversion rates, average order values for e-commerce sites, etc. For lead generation, form abandonment is important. And the thing about this, if you're not instrumented to track things like form abandonment rate, it will let you know and will suggest the fixes to your analytics for you. That's part of that initial business overview put. I also like to track 404 pages because when things break on the site, that's one of the places that you can find it, find problems. And sometimes important CTAs break and end up in the 404 pages. I do tell it to just prompt in this case. Give me the prompt. Don't execute anything. So this should work in any environment that you have. In Everopt, they have an email briefing capability. You can go in and you can use multiple GA accounts, or you can choose your Postdoc account or your convert.com account. Tell it how often you want to run this, and then paste that prompt, the resulting prompt, not the one that I just created, but the prompt that you'll find, which was, just to make sure that we're clear on this. Oh, I didn't actually have that prompt. It's on the prompting page. And so paste that into this section and you create your briefing. And just to kind of give you a little taste, it will generate a quick read. In this case, it said that traffic is down. Organic search is a big mover in terms of that lowered traffic. Referrals working good, etc. It continued to call out the issue with the spam, which it is filtering out. So I was glad to hear that it's continuing to exclude that validation of the memory. So I think with these three prompts, you will get started, and then you can dive in and start asking questions about specific products or specific campaigns. You can ask it to build funnels, and you can also ask it to graph things for you. So one of the nice things about Google Analytics is you go in and you make some changes and it does the graphs for you, and graphs can be very helpful. The language models are pretty good at this. Evernote is good at things, especially doing funnel graphs and things like that. So as you're presenting your findings to the rest of the organization, it is very helpful. So ask your AI to generate graphs for you. And I would also consider asking, say, hey, interview me about my business. So you can tell it the things that are unique about your business. The more that it knows, the more context it has, the better. If you already have some business advisors or marketing director AIs that are working with you on a daily basis, you can actually have them summarize the key things about your business and paste that either into your memory or into Everopt. Everopt will remember the history on those chats. So as it's doing this business analysis, it's going to be really tailoring its analysis to the things that are important about your business. So my goal is always to keep this to 30 minutes. I'm going to write it 30 minutes. This is part of what I'm calling the Pocket Conversion Scientist series. We at Conversion Sciences, we have to decide, are we going to continue to do business as usual, or are we going to step into those tools for which the parts of our job have become easy, let our clients and our prospects and our followers have those and continue to provide value in the areas where we uniquely can. We've decided that we're going to give away the good stuff. And I think especially Everopt is one of those unique capabilities. Anyways, I'm going to provide links to the other webinars that we've done in the series. We've started with using AI to generate copy that converts, and showed you what our model is for how to create chain testable copy. Then we did the ad alignment webinar. This showed you how we developed a tool that allows us to see what ads are coming to what landing pages, and it becomes very obvious why ads aren't converting, because we promised something in the ad, but we didn't keep that promise on the landing page. And then the replay for this will be up probably by early next week once we get it edited down. Those links will be on that prompt kit page, and I'm open to any questions that you guys have. What sorts of things are you interested in asking AI about your business? Can I share links as well as the QR code? They can be easier to use. I certainly can. I can drop those. I'll drop that link in the chat right now. This is the page. That is the link. Just very quickly how to use this. The three prompts are listed here. You click to view the copy, and then you can just click copy to copy that to your clipboard and paste it into your favorite AI. Here's a question. How much effort was involved in setting up the MCP server? I would scope it at about 45 minutes probably is what it took. It was enough that you're granting credentials and setting up OAuth and some things that I only have tangential knowledge of. I am a computer programmer, computer science major. That's where the scientist part comes from. So it was at times a little nervifying, but if you follow those guides and maybe paste them into your AI and have it step you through for each of those, when you run into something you're not sure about, screenshot what the result is, or take the screenshot and say, I don't know what to do next here. Or you mentioned something in your step and I'm not seeing it in my setup. So where else should we look? The language model will walk you through it, but I would allocate a good 45 minutes to that. Appreciate that question. What other questions have we got? You're welcome to unmute if you want to say more.
Hey, Brian. That's Nicole.
Hello.
They were interesting. I was curious. So, beyond just understanding the business analytics, when you run tests, I'm assuming that then you have that data in Google Analytics and are you able to ask questions about the test and maybe understand the data in there?
Yes, absolutely. The daily brief prompts that we set up for our clients, there is a section in there that says, examine any test data that you find or any tests that are running on the site and summarize them for us. We've got a pretty rich reporting back end already in place, but if you wanted to go in and say, look back 6 months and tell me what the trends are for the tests, summarize how many tests we ran, how many winners, how many losers, doing those macro things, that's something that is usually more of a manual process, and the language models have made it really easy. The other thing is you can ask it to diagnose. What are some of the reasons that this variation won or didn't win? Everop doesn't allow pasting of screenshots in, but you can do that in typical language models and say, here are the screenshots. So it is not just giving you heuristic diagnostics. It is looking at the difference between the variations and using its knowledge to help you diagnose why something won or didn't. So this question of why is always the bugaboo, and the questions beg more questions, but that gives you more hypotheses to test. Does that answer your question?
It does. That's awesome. And you're using this through Google Analytics today. It's only connected to Google Analytics. Do you have clients that use Adobe or something? And do they have connectors for that?
It would be there. We stopped working with our one Adobe Analytics client a few months ago. And at that time we wouldn't have been able to get access because it was an enterprise and they were very locked
Very locked
out.
down. Yeah.
I can't imagine that Adobe is not going to provide this sort of capability, that there has to be an MCP server for it. But PostHog, for instance, is one of these analytics packages that's coming on the scene, and it's really more of a data center. So it really is engineered to pull data in from your CRM and things like that. And it has a built-in conversational AI that will run these reports, do graphs for you and things like that. Everopt supports it through this so that if you're running PostHog is not particularly good for e-commerce yet, but so if you're running Google Analytics and PostHog, you can use Everopt to tie those two things together. But yeah, even if there isn't an MCP server, most services have an API, and you can point your AI at it using Claude Code or Codex, say, build me an API interface with this and create it as a skill. There should be no reason, given the tools that we've got, that you can't get access to this variety of different tools. All right, guys, I'm going to let you get on with your day. I appreciate you showing up, and I hope that this is as revolutionary for you as it has been for us.